To what degree is the Bible correct on, like, factual issues?
To what degree is the Bible correct on factual issues?
Or to rephrase, is it incorrect on any issues?
Is it incorrect? All right. There are between 200 and 400,000 manuscript variants for the New Testament in the manuscripts that we have from the 1st century through the 10th century. But those manuscript variants are so small on such inconsequential issues that we have an incredibly high degree of accuracy in the New Testament. But, for instance, I'll give you an example. John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11. Jesus encountering the woman caught in the act of adultery is not in some of the earliest Greek manuscripts. So, whether that exact event took place where Jesus doesn't condemn the woman caught in the act of adultery, I'm not sure. So you see, that's why it's a little difficult to answer your question precisely how accurate is it. It's very accurate, but is there a degree of precision that some people would want? No. There's not a degree of precision that some people would want.
Okay. Does the Bible differ on more consequential issues, such as whether or not reproduction is something that is faithful or whether or not homosexuality is something that is sinful? Is there any ambiguity there?
There's absolutely no ambiguity in the Bible on whether homosexual practice of homosexual sex is wrong, or whether the practice of adultery, or whether the practice of premarital sex is wrong. It's unequivocally clear.
Okay, is it okay if I read you some quotes from the Bible?
Sure.
Okay, cool. The first is from Genesis, chapter 1:28.
You bet.
The quote is, God encourages reproduction.
Yeah.
The second is from L.E., chapter 12, 1-8. God requires purification rites following childbirth, which in effect makes childbirth a sin. Those seem to directly contradict each other, and I can't find an explanation. So
well, it's real simple. You're not quoting the Bible. Never in Leviticus does it say that reproduction is a sin. It does talk about purification. Pardon?
I'm reading straight.
Okay, what is the verse?
It's God requires purification rites following childbirth, which in effect makes childbirth a sin.
And you're telling me that that's a direct quote from Leviticus what?
Leviticus chapter 12, 1-8.
Leviticus chapter 12, verses 1-8. The Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, a woman who becomes pregnant and gives birth to a son will be ceremonially unclean for 7 days, just as she is unclean during her monthly period. On the 8th day, the boy is to be circumcised. Then the woman must wait 33 days to be purified from her bleeding. She must not touch anything sacred or go to the sanctuary until the days of her purification are over. If she gives birth to a daughter for 2 weeks, the woman will be unclean, as during her period. Then she must wait 66 days to be purified from her bleeding. When the days of her purification for a son or daughter are over, she is to bring to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting a year-old lamb for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a dove for a sin offering. He shall offer them before the Lord to make atonement for her, and then she will be ceremonially clean from her flow of blood. These are the regulations for the woman who gives birth to a boy or a girl. If she cannot afford a lamb, she is to bring 2 doves or 2 pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. In this way, the priest will make atonement for her, and she will be clean.
Okay, I'm not sure what version of the Bible you have, but I mean, that's fine.
No, it's not fine. Whatever you're reading there is embarrassing. The Bible never says that, and for you to think that the Bible contradicts itself and to use something like that, sir, that's embarrassing.
I mean, this is from BibleGateway.com, so.
What translation does it say?
It's from the...
Because that's a summary you read. That's not a verse.
It's from the King James Version. It's a Bible.
That's not the KJV.
So the King James would never use that type of language.
Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, does the Bible direct contradict itself on more factual issues such as the nature of, like, when the Son came to be, those kind of things? Can I read you quotes that imply that they do?
Sure.
Cool. From Genesis chapter 1, 11-12, it says, trees were created before man was created. From Genesis chapter 2, 4-9, it says man was created before trees were created.
Oh. Have you ever heard of a literary device called flashback?
Yes.
Have you ever seen it in a movie or read it in a book?
Yes.
Obviously, in Genesis 2, the device of flashback is being used very clearly. Why? Because it starts with the creation of man. Obviously, human beings were not created before trees and grass and the sun. That's the first point. The second point is, if you think that you can take a Hebrew poem, which is what Genesis 1 is, and treat it as you would a science textbook, that's basic intellectual dishonesty.
So you're saying that some things which are in the Genesis are to be treated as poems and not facts? Yeah. Then how do you differ between what is a poem and what is a fact?
Good question. And if you can't find an answer to that question, you will flunk poetry versus biology at the University of Texas.
It seems a little arbitrary.
Arbitrary?
To the reader to determine what is true and what isn't.
Arbitrary. Is it arbitrary for the University of Texas to demand that if you don't go into literature class and understand what a poem is and interpret a poem as a poem, and then you go into biology class and you better interpret a biology textbook as a science textbook? Is that arbitrary for the University of Texas to ask you to learn to do that?
No, that's not arbitrary. Because
Good.
Going into literature class, you're told it's a poem beforehand. But I don't think the Genesis distinguishes between this is a poem and this is a fact.
Oh, really?
Does it start with this?
So Shakespeare begins his Macbeth with a statement that, be careful, this is not science, this is a play?
I mean...
No. You had better learn to respect literary style, literary genre, and the author's not going to have the first line say, this is science, this is poetry, this is epic poetry. You think Homer did that with the Iliad and the Odyssey? This is an epic poem, guys. Read it like that. No. Instead, you guys, if you're going to ask these types of questions, it's great that you ask them. But you're going to have to go back and do your homework, which means you're going to have to study the difference between epic poem, science, mythology, legend, historical narrative, parable, hyperbole, metaphor, simile. And if you're going to ask these questions, bravo, please continue to ask them, but you got your homework cut out for you. Go and study literary genre, and you better learn to distinguish between the different styles. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble real fast. Right?
Sure.
Good.
How can you explain the existence of God physically?
How do you explain the existence of God physically? The same way I explain the existence of justice physically. The same way I express the experience of love physically. Right. I would never try to. That would be idiocy. Love is not a physical thing. It's a value. It's unseen. Therefore, it would be stupid for me to say, here's a foot of love. Here's a pound of love. You want to weigh it? It'd be stupid. Okay. The same way I would say, your friendship, your trust, your loyalty, I can't give you a pound of that or a foot of that. It'd be stupid for me to think that I could physically show you friendship or trust. Right?
Sure. But values like justice and morality seem to be personal to the individual in that they're subjective in nature, whereas you're implying that God exists objectively for everyone.
Okay, I disagree.
And so while it is true that you cannot explain justice and morality, the way you are articulating Christianity to be true in a more objective manner, you should be able to explain it.
Okay. You and I have a big disagreement. Anybody rapes that woman, I'm going to tell that guy that's evil. Objectively evil. Not subjectively. Not, this is my taste. It's not cool to rape today because it's November 13th. 14th, 15th, you do whatever you want, but today, no rape. Baloney. I am committed to the value of justice based on the value of the individual. And the only way that can be real is if there is some God who created a human being, all of us, with intrinsic value and created a value of justice that I cannot show you a foot of or a pound of.
Or there's a difference between ethics and religion.
Yeah, well...
I mean, I think we can all agree murder is bad, but not because God says so. Like, if God
Why
said,
is murder bad?
If God said in the Bible that rape was something that is inherently good, yet I disagree, would that mean that I'm wrong?
So obviously I am arguing for objective morality exists. Point one. Point two, the only way objective morality can exist is if there is some type of God. Point three, because objective morality exists, therefore God exists. That's all I'm saying.